You are listening to another episode of the Rogue Patriot podcast, where we are taking the word patriot back from the right-wing extremists and returning it to the people who actually love and defend America. So today we're going to briefly talk about mask mandates in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, where the parties fall on the issue, and where the traditional American values fall on this issue. My name is M. Scott. Always joining me is my co-host Selena.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, this issue is a great example of how partisan politics has just completely divided the country. So right now, we are in late August. This issue has been around for about the past 2 months, where it's been really raging, but going back a little further than that. The two mainstream opinions are, one, on the Democratic side, on the Democrat side, we have a strong push towards mask mandates at the government level, whether it's federal, state, or local. And the opinion is that the government should be mandating people wearing masks anytime they're in public, including when they're on private property that is in public, for example, businesses. On the other side of the issue, we have the Republican Party. And this does not transcend seemingly throughout the entire party, because there are many state governors who are Republican and who have enacted mandatory mask requirements. There are some states, however, where the Republican governors are citing their conservative values and refusing to implement those mandates. So here are the different degrees of this issue. We can mandate masks in public areas, meaning streets, sidewalks, parks. We can mandate masks in only governmental buildings or government-owned property, like courthouses and such, post offices. Or we can mandate masks everywhere, including the places I've already mentioned, and including businesses. And I'm speaking of this from the governmental level. Those are the options that the government has. The government can't really say, whether it's federal, state, or local, can't really say, oh, you have to wear masks on the sidewalk and specifically at Walmart. They can't really do that. You have to either mandate masks for everywhere, including private property like Walmart, or for only areas in public like sidewalks, streets, that kind of stuff. Now, what we've seen is there have been individual businesses that have really taken a pro-mask charge, and there are businesses that have done the opposite, as you would expect. And this typically falls on party lines, but not always. Interestingly enough, big corporations have taken this opportunity to show how humanitarian they are. And it's funny that big corporations like Walmart are leading the charge sometimes in these kind of things, which is really disappointing that government isn't. But anyway, so here's where we wind up. People on one side of the issue are saying that mandating masks is a violation of their personal freedom. And on the other side of the issue, people are saying that not wearing masks puts them at an involuntary risk of contracting the disease just by doing things that everybody has to do, like going to buy food. So that has turned into a variety of wonderful Facebook memes and Instagram memes and all kinds of insane misinformation. And a lot of people know this and have been subjected to it. It's kind of like a running joke now how politicized it has become. But I know I have, and I know Selena has also run into thousands of these memes. And
which is ridiculous, by the way, that a pandemic, leave it to America to have it turn into a political stance. A pandemic that is costing people's lives is people standing up for their rights and standing up for their political views. It's like, okay, this is a pandemic. It's taking people's lives. Instead of, having your ass on your shoulders and once again trying to be married to your political candidate or political views and side, how about we just try saving people's lives? Let's stop trying to act like the government's trying to attack us or one party or the other is trying to take our rights. Instead, let's try to say that we're keeping citizens alive. We're keeping humans alive. And I find it gets on my nerves. This is a very sensitive topic for me because you look at other countries and you see how they've managed it, and they're already trying to get back out in the world, live their lives and everything. But America can't even seem to do that safely because people can't agree that our main focus needs to be people's lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And taking reasonable measures to protect people's lives, which we do in thousands of other ways as a society that somehow are magically not infringing on your personal freedoms while this is. So,
yeah, God forbid there be a law that says, I don't know, wear seatbelts or something.
Yeah, exactly. A seatbelt law is a great example because the way that a lot of people see that is, if I decide not to wear a seatbelt and I risk my life, that is my decision. Yes. Just like it is your decision to smoke cigarettes and risk your life that way. So the difference in that situation is similar to the difference in the mask situation. In the seatbelt equation, one of the main factors that went into that becoming a mandatory law is that if you are riding in a car with 3 other people, they're all wearing seatbelts and you're not. You might think, okay, well, yeah, I mean, if I fly out of the windshield, that's my problem. It's not theirs. Okay, well, what if you get in a wreck, you get in a rollover, and your body slams into another one and kills them? Whose right was infringed there and whose right was protected? That's the kind of issues that we get into here. So with a mask, the purpose of wearing a mask is more for other people than it is for yourself. I think that's pretty well established now. People aren't thinking in general about masks being like a big respirator kind of thing that's going to keep them safe from the virus. It's more of like a courtesy to the people that you're around. When
I think that's more of people with intelligence.
Maybe.
I don't think that's everyone. I think people with intelligence think that way no matter what side they're on.
Fair enough. And the big benefits with mask wearing is when everybody wears a mask, transmission is very low. So here's the thing.
Which, by the way, I'm pretty sure has been proven with other countries. They followed that guideline, and they've gotten out of the fog quicker. While people here are still arguing something that's been proven by mass numbers in other countries.
Right. And now it was masks in addition to other things, but that was a major piece of the puzzle was mask wearing. So here's the thing, legally, from a legal point of view, but also from a, I guess, constitutional point of view. How is it that being forced to wear a mask infringes on your freedom and being forced to wear pants doesn't? What is the substantive difference there? It's my right to show my naked body to anybody that wants to see it. The key word there is wants. Because if I go out in public naked, somebody might see my naked body who doesn't want to see my naked body.
Oh, but some people would say that's on the extreme side. Why use that as an example, though?
Well, because there's nothing in the Constitution that mandates pants wearing. It's not there. So, and there's nothing that defends your right to not wear pants in the Constitution. The same way that there's nothing in the Constitution stating that mask wearing is a violation of your rights. Look, rights are defined in this country by the Bill of Rights, and then also some general humanitarian rights that are enforced in all the other democratic countries in the world.
But so many people take the Bill of Rights and the Constitution and mix it with their own personal morals.
Right.
What they believe is the correct way of life, the correct way of living, and what you should or should not be allowed to do.
Yes, and that is a huge part of the problem, is that rights is a legal term. So when you want to say that something is your right, if it is not stated as being your right in some document, which would be either the Bill of Rights of the state or of the feds, of the federal government.
Which is why we have documents like this.
Then it's not your right if it's not in there. Guess what? You do not have a right to an uncovered face. And this is not something that I'm defending. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying that's the way it is. There are 24-ish amendments on the Bill of Rights. Not one of them has to do I think that number was wrong. That's not good. Anyway, there are mid-20s amendments on the Bill of Rights. Not one of them has to do with being able to have your face uncovered. So when we talk about this being a quote-unquote rights issue, well, right off the bat, it's not. Just like wearing pants is not a rights issue.
Yeah. So I think where people justify that is just their own personal ideas, basically, of, well, their own morals, basically, on the, whether wearing pants or whatever in public. I definitely think that's personal morals.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, but here's the difference. First of all, jumping back a second, there are 27 amendments.
Yeah.
Amendments on the Bill of Rights. And some states have individual Bill of Rights as well. But yeah, so the pants issue is just something that's so generally accepted that we're all on the same page about it. Well, masks are not legally different than that. So all of this...
Plus, masks they are pitching wearing masks and mandating them to protect you and others.
Right.
Like, that's the thing, is it's also for your safety, but you're acting like they're killing you, like they're trying to take away your rights.
Right. Which, notice that before this pandemic, there was not an allegiance of doctors that were protesting against mask wearing
Or
because it
dentists
violates
or
their
anything.
rights. Or dentists,
exactly.
or hygienists.
And somehow we haven't had them all die from suffocation, which is by far,
right.
I'm going to say funny, but I'm not meaning in a ha-ha way. That just, there are people out there, and I wish I could remember that video, what that lady was saying she was a part of, but basically people who were pushing, saying that it's not only going against your rights, but it suffocates you, can actually kill you to wear a mask. And then I think it was even, she was pitching the idea that they as employees could be sued for wearing masks.
Yeah, that was that like Freedom to Breathe administration or some nonsense.
Thank you. I could not think of it.
Now, here's where this issue, where the rubber kind of meets the road, is when the government decides to mandate masks like they have in some areas, what is the extent they can do that? Can they make you wear a mask when you're in your own home? The answer to that is basically dependent on whatever law the state passed, which allowed them to do that. So, for example, in Georgia, the governor was granted special emergency powers at the beginning of the pandemic, which allowed him to do things like, for example, institute a mask mandate, which he has not done, but it gave him the option legally to be able to do things like that, and also to order private businesses closed.
Which, by the way, is decided by political figures that were voted in office to make these decisions for us.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So the people who made that decision were, number one, the state legislators in the state Congress and state representatives, and then the governor. Those are the people that this came from. So,
which, whether you like it or not, they're the people in office that are there to make the decisions.
There are representatives.
No matter what party you are part of.
Right. Now, the answer to the question, what can, for example, the governor do? The governor can do anything that the state legislature grants him the power to do. So if any state legislature wrote a law and passed a law saying that the governor can decide to force you to wear masks in your own home, then that's what can happen. Period. There's nothing anywhere, unless it's in a state Bill of Rights document, that prevents something like that from happening. It certainly is not in the federal Bill of Rights that has anything to do with this issue. So they have that power. Now, is anybody going to do that? Probably not, because it doesn't make any sense.
And would anybody want that?
Right, exactly.
No. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, I don't know one person that would be I support the government having that power in my own home. I don't think that would even be the case.
Not.
It'd be one thing that everybody for once would probably
agree on.
Except
absolutely.
I say that, but then you have your extremists that follow their parties to the end, no matter how,
Right. Everybody would agree on it until somebody on TV said something otherwise.
Exactly. and God forbid it be a celebrity.
Right.
Because now it's
Right.
not, celebrities are not just for our entertainment and enjoyment. Now, all of a sudden, they're,
Are
geniuses, moral leaders and
Yeah.
geniuses on political stances. And it's like, really?
Yeah. So what the government can do very easily is force people to wear masks on government property because they're the owners of that property. So the people who are the executives over that can do whatever they want. Now, when it comes to mandating masks on private property like Walmart's or Target's or whatever, most states have granted that right to the governor to be able to do that if they so choose. Now, if you're asking, is that constitutional? That is somewhat of a different issue because the private property rights in this country are a little bit dicey. And for the most part, people can do whatever they want on their own private property, allow or disallow anything they want, unless it hurts somebody else, number one. Or number two, it is considered discrimination against a protected class of people. Protected classes. Yeah, protected classes meaning race, gender, whatever else. So, is it constitutional? Honestly, not really. For the government to mandate somebody do anything on private property. That issue is not addressed directly in the Constitution, but early on in the founding of this country, private property rights were very enshrined and protected. But here's the thing. That has been altered in a whole bunch of different ways since then. Most notably in the 60s, there was legislation passed, and I'm slipping on, it wasn't the voting rights, but it was something in that time that protected people against racial discrimination in private businesses. That was a huge private property rights issue at the time because prior to that, the government had no role in determining who businesses could allow in their businesses, if that makes any sense. So up until the 1960s, you could, if you were a business owner, you could have a sign hanging on your door saying, I don't serve black people, period.
Yeah, discrimination.
Exactly. So during the time of the civil rights movement, the country came together basically in the government and decided, you know what? Private property rights being absolute is not as important as people being discriminated against in that way, in such a hideous way.
Yes.
So we decided in that instance as a country, you know what? Let's change these private property rights a little bit. Now, you can have a sign hanging on the front of your business saying, I don't do business with anybody who wears purple shoes. That's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You can turn people away for any reason you want as a business owner, unless those people are in a protected class and you're doing it because you're discriminating. So this is a similar situation. That in that case, it was overwhelmingly for the public good to prevent businesses from being overtly racist and just not allowing minorities to do business there. In this case, there's a pretty strong argument that mask mandates do the same thing. It is in the public interest to control spread of this virus for a limited amount of time. Now, should governors be granted these powers until the end of time? Probably not. There should be a time limit on these things because nobody needs so much power. But there's a lot of law behind these sorts of issues, and overwhelmingly, it's not a rights issue in this case. A mask specifically is not a personal rights issue. It's a public good issue. What is in the public good is how the government would operate here. And that's not something that's really so much an opinion of mine. That's where the law goes. So whether or not you think it's the right thing to do or whether or not you think masks actually work, there's a lot of other much dumber things that are mandated in the name of public good that are fine and are widely accepted.
But this is a very popular topic, and everybody has to get an opinion in on what a popular topic that's happening, whether it's a pandemic or some political stance or something. They all need their opinions heard. And I think it's ridiculous. I mean,
Yeah, and this is another thing where there have been party lines drawn on this issue. Republicans are typically anti-mask, Democrats are typically pro-mask, and those opinions don't align with party philosophy in any real way, because the Republican Party is not in the business typically of allowing people to go into businesses without wearing pants, but that is a very, very similar issue. But the justification there is it's not in the public good for somebody to be walking around with their dick flopping out. So, I mean, that's where we're at. And with Democrats, the Democrats being pro-mask, there's a lot of things the Democrats don't push for that is also in the name of the public good because they think it's too controlling. So it's just kind of arbitrary. Like, I'm pretty convinced that there are some talking heads on news shows that started talking this way, and all of a sudden that turned into the party policy.
Well, so many people try to push the saying, I'm fighting for my rights. One thing that, and maybe this isn't with both parties, maybe this is more on the Republican side, but one thing people really push to say, and you're going to hear this a lot from me because I've had to hear it so much, is that they're patriots, they're rebels, they're fighting for their rights. They do nothing but post Facebook memes.
Yes.
But I be damned, they are fighting hard for their rights.
The keyboard warriors.
Exactly. And that's...
This is not
so
a
many
rights
people
issue.
share it, and then more ignorant people, even more ignorant than them, follow these ideas and stances, and then you have what we have today, to where wearing masks to protect people's lives is, and you know what, maybe masks do absolutely nothing. I don't know. I'm not, a genius in medicine. I don't know any of that. I think that should be left to places like the CDC and stuff, and doctors and all that. And so far, everything that I've heard, I know from my doctor's offices and stuff, is that definitely wear a mask. They're definitely pushing for that. And these are the people that are educated in it. So why would you not listen to people who have actually spent their careers and their life educating themselves in medicine and how to protect people from diseases and viruses? And I mean, just all of that. But then all of a sudden you have some, John Doe online who's all of a sudden a genius with, whether masks are protecting people, whether the virus is real, whether it's as bad as they say it is. And it all boils down to the reason they're saying this and the reason they're posting these memes and is because they're fighting for their rights. They act like they are these old-fashioned just patriots and rebels really fighting against the government. And it's so funny because half the time they do this, they'll say, oh, the government's trying to do this. And I know some Republicans that I know currently who they stand up for Trump. They stand up for the Republican side because they're Republican. But then they turn around and they're like, oh, the government's trying to do this and stuff. But yet right now, the majority of our government is ran by Republicans. So therefore, if you're against what the government's doing, maybe you should consider changing sides.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're complaining that the government is doing something and acting like they're evil or they're trying to take something away from you. And then it is actually, the majority is Republican. So therefore, that's what you voted in. So if you're not agreeing with something that someone's saying on that political stance, I think you're part of the wrong political party.
Yep.
And you need to change that. And for all the people out there that are trying to act like they are fighting for their rights just by not wearing a mask, I will say my personal political opinion, sit your ass down, because you're not doing anything but causing more conflict. And you're taking the main focus that everyone should be on, which is saving lives. And you are turning it into this, you are this fighter, you're this warrior, you're this soldier for America. And you're no one. You're someone who sits behind your computer or your TV. You probably have a beer every day when you get home from work. You're an average citizen working who hasn't done anything really special, and yet you're acting like you're going to change the country and fight for everybody's rights. And it frustrates me so bad hearing people do that.
Yeah, it's just false. I mean, during World War II, there were people and kids that went around with wagons collecting scrap metal to donate because resources were so slim at that time that everybody had to have a hand in patriotism. And now it's like we've gotten so far away from that individual reach in government that it's just you're a patriot if you hate everything that's going on.
Oh,
It's
well,
nonsense.
just share a Facebook meme with an
Absolutely,
American flag in the
absolutely, and
background. You're a
that's- you're doing the
patriot.
work.
Exactly. So, share a meme that says "Make America Great Again." You're a patriot. Like, it's these things that amount to nothing that make these people think, okay, they're the hardcore patriots. They're what keep this country great. And it's like you have done absolutely nothing with your life to benefit this country,
Right.
or keeping rights and freedom or anything. And in most of them, you can ask them to even say something from the Constitution or the Bill of Rights or anything, and they could not tell you one thing about it.
Yep, absolutely. So for more discussions like this, we will likely continue this topic on a different podcast. But for more discussions like this, always check out the Rogue Patriot podcast. If you would like to contact us with questions, comments, or concerns, use the Rogue Patriot podcast at gmail.com. Also, like and subscribe on iTunes and YouTube or wherever you happen to be listening to this. And as always, we will see you next time.